Welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast, the podcast about music, news, and interviews. I am Brian.
And I'm Lizzie, and we're here today with two of three of the co-creators of the idobi Summer School Tour. Thank you, Eric and Michael, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, what you do. You're both scene veterans. You're both people from way back in the day. We're talking about MySpace. We're talking about bands. We're talking about all this stuff. Give us a little bit of a rundown of who you are.
So Eric, okay, here's like the 30-second background. So Eric is the head of Hopeless Records. He's been there 20 years. He signed every interesting band there is. I'm a manager, so I started with Taking Back Sunday, and I did a band called 303 and sort of had a whole bunch of Warped Tour bands. We were both pretty connected to Kevin Lyman. Kevin and I ended up sharing an office. Kevin, who started the Vans Warped Tour, and Kevin sort of became my direct mentor. And the three of us came together to start a new tour this summer, which is sort of like a spiritual successor to Warped called Summer School. And this is sort of like our proof of concept. You know, there's only 6 bands instead of 60. So we definitely want to be able to talk about the tour, but there's sort of like a lot of we want to make clear this isn't like, you know, some outsider throwing a bunch of money at something to like start another festival. That the three of us really are part of the scene, part of the community, have worked very heavily, you know, with these artists. The money, you know, that's sort of raised through sponsorship is all going to charity. The ticket price is intentionally kept very low. We're meant to be a point of discovery. So we got a million anecdotes of like our personal life. We got, you know, plenty to sort of talk about in our career. But, you know, I think the conclusion is sort of like, oh, this is kind of a legit thing that's really meant to service the scene, to service the community. It's sort of a way for us to, you know, after 20-something years of working in the industry, of, you know, building something that sort of represents what we've taken, you know, away from the scene and trying to do something cool for fans.
Are you worried, Mike, that you've become a veteran, or that is it the gray beard? Because someone said the other day, they were like, "I've been doing this for 12 years," and I went, "Oh God, I've been doing this for 20 plus. Yeah. What is? Do I suck now?" When young people see me, it's like, "Oh, this guy."
You get discounts at restaurants. That's what being
you know when you go
means.
to like you know when you like go to the club shows and there's always like the 2 weird guys in the back of the room, and he's like, "Who are those old guys?"
No, Mike, that was always us. We were the 2 guys. If they were going to call out a narcs, they were like, "Oh, there." I said this story a while back. I went to see. I have a great coworker who's like, "You have to go see more EDM artists that like really vibe on emo music. It's a big thing." We're talking like 5-6 years ago. So I went to this club called 1720 in LA, and it is. If any of you have been there, it's not a magical part of Los Angeles, kind of crappy. And so I walk in, and there's a bunch of kids who have, you know, changed their clothes in the bathroom, high school kids that have showed up at this thing, and I'm in the back looking like me, and every eyeball was on me, thinking, "That's him. That's the LAPD guy. That's the narc. He's here."
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my coworker was like, "What did you think?" I was like, "I think I don't belong here, but I like the music a lot."
Yeah.
It's a mixed, uncomfortable feeling that started around 18. And has continued into my 40s. So there
you got to pick up your side cash somehow, right?
I don't know how I do. I don't know how to monetize being old, buddy. I think we're going in the wrong direction here. You said background. So I've been at Hopeless Records for 19 years as of a couple weeks ago. It's my first desk job in the music business. I love it here. Got to work with some amazing artists. It's such an amazing team here. And along the way, I've got to work with some incredible agents and managers, one of them being Mike and the other one being Kevin. Before that, I toured quite a bit with artists, and I worked in some studios before that. But I've been a fan of this space forever. I went to my first Warped Tour in 1996 and had the best time ever. So that is a little background about me. There you go.
Holy cow, 96, you're old.
No, it's fine, because if you go like with the outpouring of like, I'm buying a Nirvana shirt, I've heard this is a great brand, and then you find out that it's a band. I in 94 bought a Nirvana cassette tape in utero, I think, when it, you know, right when it came out. And, you know, I it's nice because everyone's coming back to the 90s. I can actually I can speak from a nice cultural perspective, even if I do look like Steve Buscemi saying, "What's up, fellow kids?" When I'm doing it.
But you have that sick OG like
Yeah.
merch then though that everyone's trying to sell for $600 at Vintage Fest. So you really won
Yeah.
here.
Well, if it hadn't all been thrown out when I left at 17, then
Yep.
yes, I would have been the eBay king for the evening. But sadly, not happening for me.
Eric and I met around that time. So I was actually a music video director in college, and I sort of convinced the school to give me a bunch of money to go make some music videos. And I reached out to a whole bunch of artists, and one of them was this band Taking Back Sunday, and I directed one of their first music videos ever. And I met their manager, and the manager's like, "Hey, you ever considered doing management? You know, I could use sort of some help." And I hadn't never considered doing management. I didn't think I was ever going to work in music, but it was extremely influential to me. It was a very like core part of my childhood. And so I said, yeah, you know what, I'll go do this for a few years and kind of take a detour and, end up doing music videos again because I really like the film part. What I realized about doing it is, the reason why I like the film part is um, so much of that role is to sit down and really like have a vision for an artist and figure out, who they are and how that's represented and what it's supposed to look like and feel like. And so it turns out I actually really like doing management. So I worked under this woman, Jillian Newman, who was one of my mentors with Taking Back Sunday on their first two albums, and it kind of got to a point where it was time for me to kind of leave and start my own company, and that's when Kevin Lyman, who's just one of the most incredible people I ever met. There's only two people I think in my whole career when I was very young who didn't like need to be nice to me and didn't need to get coffee with me and answer my questions. And Kevin's one of them. And he sort of took me under his wing, and that was when I was starting my own management company, and I signed this artist called 303. No one had ever heard of him. Everyone's like, you left Taking Back Sunday's team to like sign, a new artist no one had ever heard of. And, Kevin was like, you should put him on Warped Tour. Let's see what happens. So we played one show in Denver, and 10,000 kids showed up. And that was kind of the start of the company. I owe a lot, to Jillian and to Kevin. And then Kevin and I ended up sharing an office. We had a barbecue restaurant in Pasadena that we like rented basically their attic. And Kevin ran Warped Tour out of half of it. And I started to run my company out of the other half of it. And Tobin and I were roommates. So we lived together for like 11 years. With another best friend of ours who was a booking agent. So our house had a label person, a booking agent, and a manager, which was me. And then I would go to the office every day and work with, Lyman. And we just, love finding developing artists, like love finding, people who really believe in the music that they're playing. And it was so much fun because we had this great house in Silver Lake and, we had an extra room, somehow. And any artist who was in town could stay with us, and we recorded albums there, and we shot music videos there, and we sort of formed this like mini community where people did start to understand if they were in LA or they were passing through LA, they could always come and get a meal with us and have a place to stay and get some shelter. And I think a lot of the early artists that we ended up working with and developing their careers, we kind of met there. So it's been really nice. And now for the three of us to like formally work on a project and have Kevin Lyman, who's a legend of starting Warped Tour and really, not just understanding the scene, but like fostering this community. It's sort of like a dream come true for us.
I'll say thank you for helping 303 because I heard them right away and was like, this is the band. Had the opportunity. They came through Lollapalooza last year with Emo Night, and I was like, guys, I just can't say how cool it is to like, just say hello to you and like shake your hand. I saw your first show in Chicago. And then I was like, you guys remember Inner Party System? I'm going to talk to you about that for the next like hour. Cause
oh
like
my God.
that
wow. That just threw me for a loop,
right?
man.
Because I was like, I remembered that show and Inner Party
Yeah.
System blowing my mind, and like not having heard them before that show, and then I was like, yeah, you guys like, I still talk to them, and what, like, we're not gonna help you get them reunited right now. I was like, well, can't blame you for trying at Lollapalooza. So there,
Well, but it was sort of a same, right? So we were sort of joking about Nirvana shirts, but when I was in high school, um, like it was grunge, and it's like, how did grunge happen? And it was a small community of people in Seattle, and they shared a similar fashion. They wrote songs together, they played shows together, they built a community together. And then going to Taking Back Sunday, that whole scene was, the Long Island scene of basically kids sitting under a bridge, writing songs together, playing shows together, having a similar fashion, building a community. It was the same thing. And the 303 stuff was, very similar. It was just a bunch of people. The new part of the equation was MySpace was invented, and there was a point where 303 were the number one artist on MySpace. But it was the same thing. It was finding a community of people that you could write songs with and go on tour with. And the first features were, with Katy Perry and with Kesha. And that was just like a moment in an era, right, for kind of everyone. It was really fun to be a part of it. We continued to work in and kind of, figure out what the new eras are and how we can contribute to it and, be a small piece of it.
I will say too, thank you for 303, because my dad took me to Warped Tour in 2009, and that was the first time we saw him. And now my dad also loves 303.
yeah,
Very.
Well,
You got the hand signals down still? Is he still?
Oh,
got
yeah.
the-
Yeah.
He knows
Oh,
how
yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, he was like, when we were DJing with him at Emo Night, I was like, Dad, 303's here. He's like, that's so sick.
everyone in the crowd, it's cool.
I love that.
It
I
was
love it.
it was awesome. So thinking about how you want to foster this community within this new tour that you have coming up this summer, the summer school tour, what was this conversation that all three of you had together when really figuring out what you were going to do to try to kind of get this type of new thing off of the ground that is going to try to project a little bit more into the current scene of these bands that everyone should be paying attention to?
I think it's interesting because I think because Michael and I work on a bunch of projects together, one of the conversations we were having is, there's new generations all the time, right? And I think that as Mike and I are working on a project together, specifically Stand Atlantic, we were looking, where do we go? We have this great group of the demos that have come in are incredible. The record is incredible. Who are we going to support? Who are we going to support out there? How do we grow this band in the next place? Because you can headline to the same people, but what's that next step? And you go out and you look, and there's not an enormous amount of support opportunities out there, where Stand Atlantic is at. And I don't mean to, drop everything on top of them, but this started the conversation for Mike and I, because him and I have been trying to find a project to work on together because we can't get enough of each other to start. And I think this conversation became I think a lot of artists are in the same spot. There's some great festivals out there, there's some great summer opportunities, but there's only so many times you can do them. And how do we grow this community of artists where there are, that same reason you got into 303 and fell in love with it. You fell in love with it at Warped Tour, that first show where they were with Inner Party System or something like that. Where is this community of artists that are going from 500 cap rooms to 1,000 cap rooms, and then how do they get to the next step? And Mike and I started having that discussion, and we thought, well, maybe it's a day festival, maybe it's something else. And we had a meeting with Kevin, and Kevin I know he's not on the call, so I give him a lot of credit. He's just constantly still talking to all of his colleagues, every promoter and every sponsor. I mean, Kevin is ringing them up. He's one of the most creative and curious guys you get to meet. And I think he said there's a lot of people still are looking for this, and they're thinking, how do I find that next generation of angry kid bands, we'll call it, in a genre called angry kid, which I think is the genre that I work in, is a malaligned angry kid who's working on connecting with other malaligned angry kids.
Hell yeah.
And there were a lot of promoters going I'm trying to find that thing where I can put this into a 2,000 to 3,000 cap room so that hopefully that artist will come back and then I'll be able to bring all of those angry children back to that room. And that's where the idea kind of spawned from. And the rest of that ends up being logistics after that is how much time is it going to take? Are there great sponsors who are going to get involved? Because, so much of this is the big piece when Mike says sort of spiritual nephew or whatever of Warped Tour was that keeping this at a price that everybody can feel good about, right? Like, hey, I just want to go discover some bands and have a fun time, and I want to love it or talk shit about it. We'll take both. We should allow for both, but it should only cost us, the same amount as taking my friend out to McDonald's or something like that. And not that I'm shouting out McDonald's, but I think it's. But if you do like chicken nuggets, I'm shouting out McDonald's for you. 35 and under, like that was the hope. Like so for us, that next step was finding some supporters, like as you're seeing idobi and 1RPM and Hot Topic and these folks that came in and said, we can help you guys put that together so you can keep this ticket price low, because we really don't want any barrier to entry. I want a kid to say, this is no big deal. I want to show up and have the best time ever. And if I love Magnolia Park, I want to fall in love with Scene Queen, and then later on go to both. And I think that benefits all the artists. So again, this idea came from how do we grow these artists? How do we give this opportunity to everyone at a lower ticket price? And then see where we go from here. And again, the rest is just... goes from 5 to-do list items, which quickly turns into 500. Super excited about that.
It's we all have these stories about Warped Tour as a community, and we would go with our friends, to just spend the day there and like see a bunch of bands. There was a path for Fall Out Boy and for All American Rejects and for 303 and for Mike Posner and for Eminem and Black Eyed Peas, like all these people who kind of did early Warped Tour. But you would go and you just discover new bands. And there are a lot of festivals that still exist that are like really fantastic for that, for I think artists that like, oh, I know this artist, I have to go see them. It's hard for a developing artist, right? To like come in and build that community and build that fan base and build all that stuff. And so, very much Derek's point, it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, it's got to be $35. It's got or less. Every band that we, say is on the bill is going to play every show, and we got 28 shows. So we're going to take all of these bands on the road at the same time. And you're going to go and just have a whole day of music for like $35 and like come hang out with your buddies. And you probably won't love every single artist, and that's okay. But for $35, like it's a pretty low risk. And hey, what if it turns out it's your favorite band? So I think we're really taking the approach of, these are the headliners of tomorrow. Because it's kind of been a minute till the next generation of this artist has kind of been raising their hands. And there's like a few I think we all feel like could go do it. But there's not necessarily like an obvious path to go do that anymore. So if we can help be that path, then that's great for the scene. It's great for the community. It's great for the artists, right? It's kind of just good for everyone. And we're going to hopefully be a small part of that.
I don't know why I thought when you said 35 or under that you were talking about age and not cost, and I was like, damn, I can't go.
Yeah, well, no, Mike and I wanted to find a good excuse not to have to go to our own tour. We're very tired, and so we said 35 and under only. We can just stay home. It's fine. Totally
we're setting our own barrier to entry to our own fest.
It's perfect.
But who can control it? I can't stop
everyone else could go except us.
Yeah. You said, guys, we're gonna gatekeep the gatekeepers now. Don't worry about it. You don't gotta do it anymore. We got it. We got it.
Yeah, we're celebrating diversity by just kicking out every generation prior. It's totally fine. But honestly, and kind of following on that note, like part of this tour too is also finding opportunities to find some young crew members that, I think so many people that are working in this business that have worked on so many of the classics we're just talking about were merch people, tour managers, tech people, drivers, photographers. And I think that partly the tour opportunity is also to say, hey, let's go give a couple people a chance to work on this with us. They're going to love this even more. They're going to bring new ideas. And so we're out trying to we have put together a crew that we're pretty excited about, albeit small this year. The hope is to build another community of sounds like such a college entrance exam thing, young professionals that will someday be on a podcast like this embarrassing themselves by saying shit like young professionals.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody who was, around those Warped Tours way back in the day and looking at like festival lineups now and things like when we were young, I'm like, there are a lot of these bands that have kind of been around for a while and kind of run a lot of this stuff, and feels like, we see the same names every year at festivals, big ones like Lollapalooza, or, you just kind of see the same names all the time. And so I think that it's something that's going to need to happen eventually, where it's like we need bands that people don't know yet but are really good. Like we saw the lineup, where like we assumed these bands are like they could be on any festival, they could do anything they want because we love these bands. But I'm like, oh, there's probably a lot of people out there who still need to hear of them. And then 1 year Red Hot Chili Peppers is like, well, we're old and tired and our legs don't work anymore, and get Stand Atlantic to fill in for the headlining role.
Well, I mean, look, I think that's true. And I mean, look, it's important to say that a lot of these festivals do, if you're looking at in a sense, like lower down on the stage, I mean, these festivals, all of them, give great opportunities to tons of artists, especially at Hopeless. I mean, I'm always thankful for the Lalas and the Riot Fests and When We Were Young and all of them, I think. But that conversation that comes up is, what's dedicated just to this community, right? And there's some risks inherent with that, but I think that, like Mike had said, for the both of us, like developing artist careers and pathways for a kid to own that space. I can make a joke about understanding the 90s because I grew up in it, right? And those were my bands, and that was my cultural currency, right? Like I talked about every single band that was big and every band that was local as if they were the biggest thing ever, right? That was the currency that allowed me to have conversation, have friends, right? So if I start in a place where I'm lonely kid, in my case, like lonely disabled kid comes to high school and has very few friends, and then meets kid who has headphones on and is smoking cigarettes, and I'm like, what do you listen to? He's like, you wouldn't know it, kid. And like you feel FOMO for the first time. You're like, fuck, I wouldn't know it. Wait, he didn't say the band name. How do I know I don't know it yet? He said it. I don't know it. I'm shocked I don't know it because I have no cultural bearing whatsoever. I've got a t-shirt tucked into white jeans that I got at a discount store. I have a comb over. It's terrible. I don't. My curiosity is the only thing that carries me forward. Everything else is terrifying. And out of that, like, I go home and look this up, right? Like I have to bike to a music store and find out what it is. And all of a sudden I'm listening to the music and now I'm in, right? This is my community. And every single band in that era that was new then, I grew up with, I talked about it, I had opinions about it, and who was dating who and who broke up and why they were depressed and what they wrote in this magazine. And that was my community. Every friend I had was in that world, right? And I think that what you're saying is that I've grown up, I'll go back and see Smashing Pumpkins anytime because for a minute I can remember what it was like and all the friends and all those things, or that is a really big moment for me and who I was. It defined who I was. And I think a lot of these headliners, the people who are there is a nostalgia attached to that you can't take away. I think what we're talking about and what you're talking about is finding that kid who's just discovered music and is just untucking his t-shirt from his pants and giving him an opportunity to be a part of that and say, these are my bands, this is my world, these are my people, and we can talk shit about our parents and fall in love with our problems, our issues, and discover that emotions have words and those words are in lyrics, and we want to create that world for that kid. That kid is Mike and I, and you too, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
To sort of build on that, because we come off as very old people, because we are, but we actually do stay part of this scene, part of this community. We listen to this kind of music. We've been part of this kind of music for like literally decades. It's still an important part of our life. It's still what we listen to. But one thing that I sort of feel like for the health of the music industry, especially post-COVID, was we kind of realized a few things. One of them is that there's a lot of kids who just had a very important part, that whole time of Eric's life that he just described, doesn't exist for them, and they have never been to a concert, and it's just not something they even think about as something they could do as an activity. If it's like, what are we going to do tonight? Going on Snapchat, going on TikTok, going on Instagram, playing Call of Duty with your friends. All of these things are substitutes now for going out and enjoying live music. And the double challenge with that is during COVID, prices soared, right? Like we've really had to talk to these artists and their managers and their teams to figure out how we could all play ball together and keep this ticket price low, because it's very, 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 very hard. And when you get people who are just spending their formative years learning to do activities that don't include going to see live music, and on top of that, now having the opportunity to go see live music, but a ticket is out of reach for what someone can make. That's a dangerous place, I think, for us as an industry. And it's, maybe selfishly a little bit what we have to think about, because I hope to be working in music for the next 10 or 20 years still. I know we all are. And if that goes away and it's just old people going to concerts, and that's what it's going to end up being, and we sort of die out, and then you listen to music in Fortnite, which is totally acceptable, but it's just different, then I think we failed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think the things with the ticket prices, like thinking about even when I was in like undergrad and in high school, and like between like 2009, 2012 high school years, it was like me and my friends could, once we all had licenses or we took the train down to the city, we could say, oh, we're going to go see this show. Or there was enough like local shows near us that it's like $5, $10 for like a hardcore act or something. And now I look for things like that sometimes if I'm ever back out in like the suburbs of seeing my family, or if I'm just like, I'm bored, I want to go to a show and see like new bands. It's like, oh, this is going to cost me $30 to go to like Cobra Lounge here, which usually I've experienced like $10, $12. And I think that that is such a prime thing that a lot of kids, especially in this music scene where you kind of thrive off of that rambunctious freedom that just kind of comes about, it's just not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess too, after you securely park your car and you buy a little bit of water, you're flat broke at that event. So yeah, I understand. No, but you're right. I mean, I think that having that opportunity to say, I remember when, or I went there and it was this price and I got to go hang out and make my best friends, and you didn't have to worry about the money portion, I think is so important.
This tour really started as an idea that we kicked around, going like, does anyone else feel like this? Does anyone think if we called them and we're like, we got this crazy idea, that they might say yes to it? Because there are a few principles, right? One of them is that if we were going to do sponsors, they had to contribute. We're not just like taking sponsor money. They have to contribute in some way. So they have to help the artist. They have to help the fan. They got to be part of the music world in some way. And one of the other principles was that the ticket price had to be low, right? One of the other things was it was going to be a rotating bill. So it's not about, who's headlining. It's about you come out and every artist plays, but you don't know who's going to be, playing at what time. So, maybe you spend 30 minutes and you sort of see someone who you wouldn't have seen before. But that's how you discover artists, right? All of these performers and all of these artists, fantastic live bands. And so Eric and I sort of sketched out this concept and called Kevin, and Kevin was like, yeah, okay, like I'm retired, but this sounds really fun. Let's see what we can do. And then we just called the artists, right? And to their credit, pretty much all of them right off the bat was like, we've been waiting for someone to say this. Like, we can't believe, no one's called us about this. If you can figure out how to check all these boxes, which is almost impossible, we're in. And, the next step then was just going to people that we knew were part of the scene, who were maybe able to help subsidize the ticket price. So we actually have 100% of our sponsor money is going to subsidize the price, right, by keeping costs low, paying for things like publicity, paying for things like production on the tour. It's all going back into the tour. But a major pillar of it is how do we keep these costs from just ballooning. And I'm very proud to say that I don't know if every festival throughout the entire music industry really is approaching things like that. But they jumped. Idobi right out of the gate was like, absolutely, however we can support you, let's do it. We can write a check. We can integrate you in the platforms. We can take all the artists and make them part of this block of programming, 1 RPM. Honestly, we didn't even have to ask 1 RPM. Well, they heard about it and they jumped to us and they're just like, how do we help you, right? And so they contributed money that we took all of that money and we said, how far does this get us in lowering the ticket price? And it was pretty significant, right? Hot Topic, who we've worked with for literally decades, who's always been amazing at like buying a bunch of shirts from our artists and like literally, paying them, which like keeps them fed and stuff. Right from the jump was like, yeah, we totally get it, right? This is a wonderful, place for our fans too. How do we jump in? So none of this would have happened without the artists getting it, the managers getting it, the agents getting it, the sponsors getting it, everyone really coming together and saying this community is important. And that, like, how amazing is that, right? That's so cool. I think the fact that we're up for like 35 bucks, ticket fees we're trying to keep really low, and we're just hoping that people can recognize what this is and come out and be a part of it, and hopefully it goes well enough that there's a year too.
I will have to throw in here, I have to shout out to the artists. It's been, one of the sponsors asked the other day, like, what do you, the tickets are going great. It's like, what do you attribute that to? And I'm really happy to say, I think it is all of these artists are amazing. I mean, we're fans of all of them. I'm a huge fan of every band on here. And that sounds like I'm gassing them up. I really do enjoy every person on here, and I've met them. They've probably had to deal with me saying, "Are you interested in talking about Hopeless?" Which sucks for them. But the truth is they've been so interactive. We went out and started teasing this thing, and they've been running with the brand and coming up with their own ideas, and they continue to do it. And it's so exciting to work with people that are excited about the concept and to be part of it. And the sponsors have run with it too, and the artists went and interacted with all the sponsors. I think some of our concern always is like, hey, have we planned enough to make the artists go do something, that helps sell this thing? And they just ran with it. And they've all been really friendly with each other and excited, and they've all met each other, and it does really feel like a family. And a lot goes into the process, I guess, logistics-wise for us to set it up, but you can't speak enough or talk enough about how great it is to have artists that know each other, like each other, and are just having a good time and looking forward to being together this summer. Because there's going to be, putting 6 bands into a venue and then rotating bills and getting everybody to get up on stage will be a labor of love amongst all the crew members and all of that. But just to see everybody interact and have a great time, if I could say preemptively what's the most exciting part is just knowing that all of these bands are just loving on each other like this on the social side and having such a good time with it. And as it gets closer, we can only expect it to get even better. And that's something big, I think, as this thing's going out. And in a couple weeks here, we're going to announce our charity partner, and that'll be another big piece of this too. Is we're giving 50 cents for every ticket purchased to a nonprofit, which I think a lot of people in our community are doing. We feel happy to be part of that legacy of that as well. And so, just again, it's exciting in that way.
I do want to shout out some of the artists that are playing it just for this inaugural one, and maybe if you want to mention like how you came to choose some of them. But obviously, Stand Atlantic being someone that you manage, Michael. So we kind of know why they're on here. Obviously, they're spectacular. We've seen them a couple times here in Chicago, and I'm like, God, I love them. They're so good. But Mag Park, Home Team, Scene Queen, Honey Revenge, and Letdown. What was kind of the thought process behind some of these bands being on this festival, this inaugural one? Or is it just that, no, we loved them and they were free for the summer?
Well, no, I think that the truth is that every single band on this tour is, every venue we go into, I think they're all primed to headline those venues. Maybe it's not directly next summer for some, but the truth was that we felt like every one of these artists fits that idea we were talking about earlier with the community that's coming together, that's a new generation, that's brand new, and these are their bands. I think every one of these artists has such a core connection to their fans, like so dialed in with them. They have something to say. Artists believe in what they have to, the fans believe in what they have to say. They show up, they work their asses off. I don't think, every artist on this tour, the truth is you can go and watch them. They work day in, day out on socials to promote. They're using that opportunity. When they're not on the road, they're still promoting like they're on the road. I mean, there's no lack of these artists doing that work. They're all incredibly creative. They make great music that means something. And, the short story to that is that every one of these artists is a headliner in their own rights. And putting them together, it felt like the right match, and I think that, they work with great teams, great agents, great managers who felt the same about this opportunity, and that was, I can't be say enough good things about all these artists coming together. But yeah, the real answer is that all of them are headliners. They really are, and this, we hope, brings them to that next space.
I work on Stan Atlantic. There's a manager here named Matt Clark, who's super, super smart. Actually, has been managing Stan Atlantic since the beginning. He came and joined the company a few years ago, and one of the things he really did super, super well is, this is a band from Australia, and now they can go anywhere in the world and sell a bunch of tickets and even headline and stream, and they have a career that's literally worldwide. And it really started with Matt. And when we were working on this new album cycle, we were kind of looking at all these different territories, and Stan Atlantic co-headlined in Australia, and we're doing really great. And we started to go out to all these different places, and they're in Southeast Asia and the UK and Europe, and we're looking, we're going, man, America should be one of our biggest places, and it's not, right? Like, why is this? What's happening? Like, what's happening culturally? What's happening socially? What's happening financially? Why can this, little band from the middle of the nowhere, Australia, go out and tour the whole rest of the world, but they come to America, and just that support isn't there yet, right? And we really had to sit down and break down the factors of it, and it comes down to a few things, right? It's like opportunity and community, and they've done some great touring here. But just to expand a little bit, we pick bands that they're not all identical. They don't all sound the same, but they are leaders in their respective space. And we do feel like where they do overlap is like in an ethos, and they do overlap in a lifestyle. And they are the type of thing where, they stand for something where if you believe in that band, you can believe. If you're a fan of Stan Atlantic and you really get behind, Bonnie's lyrics and what she's trying to say, that might translate into the home team. But maybe you haven't heard the home team because you just never had an opportunity to do that, because there's so many shows here and they're so expensive, and we're just constantly inundated all the time, everywhere, all at once, with everything. So, we really sat down and carefully said, who are the leaders in their respective space? And we have, Scene Queen isn't exactly the same as Magnolia Park, but maybe there is an overlap there in sort of what some of these artists stand for, or how they feel about certain things, or even just emotionally, right? And so when we went to talk to the other artists, and they were like, "Who are you thinking?" And we told them, everyone's like, "Yeah, this rules. Like, let's all have a blast and have a good time." And not every tour is fun. We want our tour to be really fun.
This is why I should let Mike talk first, guys. I was in such a rush to say my things, and then Mike starts talking, and it feels good. And, I'm interested in this tour now. I'd like to go and see it.
So I'll tell you a ticket. I'll sell you a ticket. No, there's one more thing I think that's really, really, really important here, and it belongs beyond just this tour. I've been working in entertainment now for over 2 decades. So has Eric. One of the things we all hear about is, there's some real douchebags that work in this industry, and they suck, right? They're awful. Sometimes it's artists, sometimes it's managers, sometimes it's labels, sometimes it's, just fans, and it comes from all over. And, Tobin and I, we're best friends. We've been basically childhood friends since we started in this industry. And we talk a lot about one of the things that we're very fortunate to now be in is we're in a position to choose to work with really amazing people, and that's a choice that luckily we can make. And if we're going to surround ourselves, it's hard doing this job. I think we could all get out of the music industry and make a lot more money. We're not doing this for money. We're doing this because we believe in it and it belongs in our bones, and we sort of have to go do this. But if we're going to do it, let's go work with amazing people, right? And champions of us, and let us help us champion them. And so, at our core, me, Tobin, and Kevin Lyman have been very close for many, 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 many years. But the managers of the artists on this tour are great people. The artists are great people. Their teams are great people. Our road crew, Kevin and I are professors at a university. teaching a lot of class, we selected, some students who are just graduating. This is their first job now out of college. They're great people. We got to build back a community of like great people. And I think that's when the best moments happen in music. When we look at grunge and you look at, the Long Island scene, you look at all of these things, you're really just taking really talented, good people and you're putting them in a space and you're letting them do their thing. And that's what happened on Warped Tour, right? You had all these artists, they'd play their show, and at night, Kevin would bring out his barbecue and cook for everyone, and all the artists would just hang out together and be like, oh, let's trade numbers, let me send you the song I'm working on. It'd be super cool if you sang on it or like produced my song or whatever that was. And it's just missing, right? So these good people are existing in isolation. Part of what we're trying to do behind the scenes is like, let's turn this into a thing.
What is the most emo song you are listening to right now?
The most emo song I'm listening to right now.
Sure.
Go ahead, buddy.
So I'll never use any of my own artists, writer clients, because that's very bad. Man, I hope she doesn't. Well, she'll never hear this. There's this artist named Sarah Kays. And I'm just like the biggest fan. And I got to like meet her last year and like totally freaked out and like stumbled over all my words and had a little panic attack. And she's such a poet and a beautiful songwriter. And I think it's just making, lyrically some of the best lyrics currently. And I don't think anyone listens to it and is like, this is emo music. But the feelings come.
They're emo.
My feeling is that you're not really an emo kid if you don't listen to Another Love by Tom Odell once a day. That's my vibe. I know it's not from the classic emo lexicon, but I'm just saying, if you're a sad kid and you don't listen to that song right when you wake up, so you start your day in permanent sadness, then you're not doing it right.
That's the weirdest alarm clock I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's the first thing I hear. Yeah, this is why I'm not allowed to sleep with anyone. All the pets leave me alone. I'm on a sad couch in the basement. It's very nice.
Like, we don't want to hear that shit when you wake up.
Like, we can't ruin everybody's day right now. It's only you made that decision.
Yeah. But I'm so uplifted by it. I'm like, all right, today's the day. It's going to be better.
It can only go up.
That's right. But not a classic emo song, but I'm making it one right now.
That works.
There you go. All right, so our other question is, how was the music scene where you are originally from? Or where you are now, if you feel it's better?
I think the one where I grew up was incredible. It's interesting. There's a podcast that just started and it's pretty small and it is in my hometown. I'm from Western Massachusetts, and I didn't realize it was there. One of my buddies went and got on. It's the 413 podcast, and they are sort of talking about the little music scene from Western Massachusetts through the late 90s and into the 2000s. And I hadn't thought about it in a long time. And when I went back and listened to some kids talking about it, got a little emotional about it, actually, speaking of emo. I thought the music scene where I was from was incredible because it was all these kids from up county, down county, just over the border of New York and like Springfield that were in punk bands and hardcore bands pre-internet, and we were doing basement shows together. And that community of people that sort of walked up and down the one main street in my town, waiting for other kids to pick them up and to go to other basement shows and hang out, it was incredible. It was incredible. I don't know any bands that ever came out of there. But I will tell you that the ideas of community and learning about what it's like, being in a 50-person basement show felt like I was in an arena, and it was incredible. It really was.
I was very spoiled. I grew up in Southern California, so for me it was Richard and Stephanie Rains who ran Drive-Thru Records, and even if a CD came out and had Drive-Thru Records printed on it, I'd buy it, and it would be like you just knew it stood for quality, and that you were going to love it somehow. And man, we've really come. There's not a lot of places left where it's like you see a label name on something, you're like, everything from this label is going to be awesome. But the thing they were so good at is they were like using the community to help launch the next thing. So you'd go, see the starting line, and it would be like surprise opening guest, and it was a guy with a guitar, dashboard confessional, and I'd be like, who's this? What is this? I've never, the internet didn't exist. And you'd just be like, I can't believe how good this is. It's so great. And then he would come through and headline, and it would be like, come see, Finch. And then it was, come, and they like truly, they toured together, they put out compilations together, they did all these things together. And for like, as a kid, it's like collecting comic books. It was like anything that came out from Drive Thru, you bought the album, you went to the shows, you bought all the original shirts. Like it was a real like era. Like it meant something, and I miss that.
What songs would you recommend by the bands that are on the summer school tour?
Oh man, that is a great question. Well, I'll start with Stan Atlantic. We just put out a song called "Girls" a while back, and I think this song is so effing stellar. I mean, and it's featuring some of my favorite artists, Paris, who's on Hopeless, an artist from Mexico called Bruces, that's not on the label, but is incredible in her own right. I think that song is fantastic. I think for Scene Queen, Stuck is, obviously I'm putting these things out, so some of these things are incredibly important. Like, and Stuck features Barely Human, who I also think is just one of those artists in this community that is secretly, or maybe not to the people who know who they are, but massive. And I think that I don't know. I think the song is fantastic. Maybe not their newest thing, but like I think, damn it, old person memory. Airhead by Honey Revenge is friggin' fantastic. It's so good. Yeah, I don't know. Is that too many? Is that enough? I mean,
No, I think
love
that's
every band
good.
on this damn tour. So
Yeah, exactly.
I could go through it all day. I mean, I think that all of them like do some great genre bending stuff, and I think that, I mean, look, the Halloween mixtapes by Magnolia will always be my freaking favorites. I mean, I remember talking to them when they were first putting them out, and they just do such a great job with the goddamn branding. It's spectacular, and they're cool guys to hang with and talk with. Some of the smartest marketing people I've met, and great artists. That wasn't meant to disparage music. They're just very good at what they do. So yeah, there's. I think the artist that I discovered in this process, which was kind of fun, was Letdown. I didn't. They were suggested to us, and when I started listening to it, and God, I was just so impressed by his voice, by the sound, by the music, and like how he does his promo. So I don't know, that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've heard I don't really, I'm not like there to promote songs. I think like what I'm hoping is you like go, this seems like an interesting tour, and you just dig into the catalog and you can spend an hour and go listen to a few different things. A lot of these artists, their songs have a very big range of stuff. But I mean, for whatever it's worth, like I sent a fan letter to Magnolia Park like years and years ago. These are artists that we are big fans of. The home team, I think we put them on a Point North tour. We put them on, I think, a With Confidence tour. Like we're just big fan. Like we have been putting them on tours, being like, we love you, you're great. And I think the best way to discover that stuff is just either show up blind and like come see what great live performers they are, or just spend an hour on Spotify and like do your own. I know it's such like an old person cop out, but I really do believe like that's how I discovered music. And if I had listened to one specific song of one of my favorite artists, I'd be like, why is this anyone's favorite artist? Like this song sucks. And then you get to the next one, you're like, I get it, right? So. But we legitimately are like huge fans of everyone who's on.
We can go ahead and just do like a quick plug for like the dates of the tour, where people can get all the tickets, buy all the tickets. They got to buy all of them. Where people can find any other information about the summer school tour, all that stuff. We can do the plugs now.
Well, I think everybody should go to summerschooltour.com because there's lots of great stuff there. All of our sponsors, all the bands, the videos, and tons of tickets for sale. This kicks off July 10th in Cleveland, everybody's favorite town, and goes till August 17th, where it finishes up in Anaheim. And it is playing lots of amazing venues. And again, summerschooltour.com for all of that information. Or follow us on your favorite social media, whatever that might be. Mike, what's our Instagram handle? Tell him.
Oh no. They kept blocking my account name.
Whoa, that's so crazy.
Wait, hang on. No, it's Summer School Tour. We ended up getting the one we wanted. So it's Summer School Tour, and it's pretty fun and a little funny, and it's got some personality. So come hang out with us.
Hell yeah. Do you guys want to drop your personal Instagrams or where they can follow you, or are you like...
There's nothing fun on my personal Instagram unless you can enjoy looking at me and my partner, probably a photo of my wonderful bonus child, Emma, and mountains that I like climbing. It's very not music. It's very boring.
Mine's boring for different reasons. But you can follow the company, right? So the name of our management company is K Management, just the letter K. It's 5 letters, KMGMT. It's usually me hanging out with Eric. So as exciting as that might be, there are pictures of like bands backstage and things we're proud of and interesting achievements. But follow the tour. That's where we tell all our jokes.
Yeah. And always happy to plug Hopeless Records, who is my alma mater, speaking of schools and things of that sort. And plenty of good stuff there. We've got a lot of amazing releases, including a Scene Queen and a Stand Atlantic record coming this summer while they're on tour. So pretty excited about that. And hope to see you all at a show. Yeah. You both.
We'll be there.
Oh, yeah. I love Scene Queen. I had to find my way into the Bottom Lounge show because it was sold out.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I saw her in Chicago. Maybe you were there. Was it the Bottom Lounge? I can't remember.
It was the most recent one.
Oh, no, this is a while back. Wait, her mom and her sister were there.
Oh, no, I was at that one. It was at Sub T.
Yeah, the small
Yes,
one.
it was a Sub T.
Yes, I was
that room
there.
Was sweaty. And it's funny because Dan from the Wonder Years came out to that show.
Oh,
which
shit.
was amazing. And because Hannah's such a big fan of his. And it was around Riot Fest. And God, that show was good. But I remember her mom was wearing the pink denim jacket. Her sister was pregnant, and she pointed them out up there. And I looked down at the crowd, and I was like, these kids are so angry, and I love every part of this. I'm here for this. I think they want to kill me. I'm the wrong demographic to be in this room, but I'm happy that Hannah's here to create this, and I'm a small part of it. So.
Perfect. Last question then, because it's like a Warped Tour light. Are you bringing back the big inflatable wall so people know when everybody's playing?
We're going to blow it up in one park in the United States, and we'll announce that on the first day of tour, and anybody can drive to that specific park in the United States.
There you
go. Absolutely. No, I think we're going to stick with morning announcements. Okay. That's how we're going to know. Just stick to your socials for your morning announcements. Everything has to be school themed because that's the kind of corny marketing we go in for.
Well, and Kevin and I are teachers, so.
True.
There it is.
Also a good reason to follow on socials. So make sure that you are checking out summerschool.com, following on the socials. All the links will be down in the description of the video or the podcast if you're listening to it. Until this summer, Michael and Eric, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, talking to us. We're very excited for this. These are a lot of our favorite bands that we've heard over the last few years. So very exciting things, and we're glad to talk to you and be a part of it in our small way.
Amazing,
awesome, guys.
Thank
you.
Hit us up and get tickets, and we'll see you at the show.
Hell
yeah.